Welcome back, everyone. I am doing a Knowledgia video. We haven't done one in a while. This is called How Powerful Was the Pope in Medieval Times? So, like Charlemagne to like King Henry VIII, somewhere in there. Lego.
The Pope in Latin, Papa, which means father, is known as the Supreme Pontiff, or Greatest Priest. He is the Bishop of Rome, and
Wasn't the Pontifex Maximus wasn't Caesar the Pontifex Maximus at one point? And wasn't Octavian? And like, we just did some Roman videos as well. I just never put the two and two together.
ex officio leader of the worldwide Catholic Church. Since the 20th century, more exactly in 1929, the Pope is the head of the State of Vatican. His office is called the Papacy. The jurisdiction of the Episcopal See is called the Holy See. The Holy See is the sovereign entity of international law, located in the independent city-state of Vatican, established in 1929. Founded in the 1st century by Saints Peter and Paul, according to Catholic tradition, here is the central point of the Catholic world. As a sovereign entity, the Holy See is headquartered in, operates from, and exercises exclusive dominion over the independent Vatican city-state, which is enclaved in Rome, Italy, of which the Pope is sovereign. The primacy of the Bishop of Rome is largely derived from his role as the apostolic successor to Saint Peter, to whom primacy was conferred by Jesus, giving him the keys of heaven and the powers of binding and loosing, naming him as the rock upon which the church would be built. The papacy is one of the most enduring and important institutions in the whole world, and it has had an important role in the history of Europe and the world. Currently, in addition to the expansions of the Christian faith and doctrine as it was back in the days when this was the biggest mission of the institution, today, the popes are involved in dialogues, speeches about equality and peace, charity, the defense of human rights, and in appearing as a model from which the world may receive a sort of guidance. Well, some centuries ago, the Pope was more powerful than today, but not every time. As this question, how powerful was a king in medieval times, cannot be answered properly, because it depends on other factors. Our question about the Pope cannot be answered properly due to the same reasons. There were many popes, different characters with different personalities in different times. Thus, some popes were not as saint and good-guided as others, as in the case of kings or rulers of all times.
Yeah, there were definitely some corrupt popes. I definitely know that. There are individuals that were definitely hiring prostitutes. There were individuals that were definitely, corrupt and holding money. And there's a lot of other things, but by and large, they are an advisor, right? As well as the head of the Catholic Church.
Things were not always the same. The Christian world, or more exactly after 1054, the Catholic world, was ruled by weak, mediocre, powerful, good-guided, bad-guided, influential, or influenced bishops. The doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church that the Pope, by reason of his office as Vicar of Christ and as pastor of the entire Christian Church, has full supreme and universal power over the whole church, changed the history. The doctrine had the most significance in the relationship between the church and the temporal state, in such matters as ecclesiastic privileges, the actions of monarchs, and even successions. The creation of the term papal supremacy dates back in the 1st centuries after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, which was the beginning of the rise of the bishops of Rome, to not just the position of religious authority, but the power to be the ultimate ruler of the kingdoms within the Christian community, called the Christendom, in a period dominated by religion. Being seen as the head of the church, the Pope had an immense spiritual power over Christian subjects, having influence over them.
And I'm wondering why this was, right? Because there's the divine right of kings, but it seems that the Pope becomes this middleman between the divine right of kings, more of a blessing. And is it the divine right of Pope that divine right of kings follow in hierarchy?
A king who had some issues or rivalries with His Holiness could have had a difficult period, as the neighbors of that king who resisted the Pope's will would have been glad of an opportunity to invade, take some territories, gain more power, and punish such a king. Also, some rules were at a big distance, but sometimes the people could have been still faithful to the distant Pope over the local king. Another phase in the process of papal supremacy's rise to prominence, when the Pope had a lot of power, is the period from 11th to the mid-13th century. Gregory VII is considered one of the
11th to the 13th. Are we talking crusades?
great reforming popes, but also other sources describe him as rough and violent. He was known for his role in the conflict between church and state in medieval Europe, over the ability to install high church officials. By undercutting imperial power, the controversy led to nearly...
Hold on. The Investiture Controversy was a struggle between the state and the church. This happened in medieval Europe. The conflict started with the power that installed church officials. This was seen as undermining imperial power. Civil War.
50 years of civil war in Germany. His actions created civil and ecclesiastical strife in Germany and Italy, known as the Investiture Controversy, a game for power. The Pope wanted to have the authority to invest local church officials. Perhaps the most notable action of the Pope in medieval times was the call for crusades. Papal supremacy was also increased when Urban II called for a crusade in 1095. In an attempt to liberate and retake the Holy Land from Muslim domination. He promised forgiveness and pardon for all of the past sins of those who would fight to reclaim the Holy Land.
Isn't that crazy? I'm sorry, but like one individual is like the hand of God. It's just hard to fathom that.
And free the Eastern churches. Under papal leadership, the aggressive energies of the European nobility. Urban also gave support to the Crusades in Spain against the Moors there. Pope Urban was concerned that the focus on the East and Jerusalem would neglect the fight in Spain. Urban died on the 29th of July, 1099.
Right before the First Crusade was successful, right when they were sieging Jerusalem.
14 days after the fall of Jerusalem to the Crusaders, but before news of the event had reached it.
Oh, so I have it backwards. So technically he did live to the fall of Jerusalem, yet this, because, they did not have, CNN or whatever. Bro didn't see it bro never saw it, but his friends and family 2 weeks later.
Italy. Such powerful popes as Alexander III, Innocent III, Gregory IX, and Innocent IV mastered a primacy over the church that attempted to gain a jurisdictional supremacy and great influence over emperors and kings of Europe in temporal and spiritual affairs. Speaking about the rest of the Middle Ages, popes struggled with monarchs over power. A period known as the Avignon Papacy arose from the conflict between the papacy and the French crown. This culminated in the death of Pope Boniface VIII after his arrest and maltreatment by Philip IV of France. Following the further death of Pope Benedict XI, Philip, the King of France, forced the election of the French Clement V as Pope in 1305. Clement refused to move to Rome, and in 1309 he moved his court to the papal enclave at Avignon. A total of 7 French popes reigned at Avignon.
That's interesting. I did not know that. So Avignon, which is also a good wine, ruled in this castle-like structure. That's cool.
In 1376, Gregory XI abandoned Avignon and moved his court to Rome. After that period, a kind of civil war will start. 2 or 3 men claimed to be popes, but the situation was resolved afterwards. Some of the popes in the Middle Ages became powerful and highly influential. This was the period of the Crusades, where thousands of medieval Christians, rich and poor, old and young, from all walks of life, traveled nearly 3,000 miles to the Holy Land. The Catholic Church became the universal and unifying institution. However, In 1054, there was a split between the Eastern and Western Christian churches,
Right, the schism.
which was prompted by arguments over the Crusades. The religious zeal of the popes in medieval times transferred into medieval society. A centralized Catholic Church was realized under Pope Innocent III in 1198. The Church and the power of the popes was eventually weakened by quarrels between church and state. At one time, the pope had power over a king, and afterwards, a king was more powerful. The 100 Years' War and the Wars of Roses led to the end of the feudal system and the emergence of the modern nation-state. The medieval religious reformers of the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance culminated in the Protestant Reformation. I know that you probably expected to talk about Henry VIII of England.
No, I thought that was going to be the cap on top of everything. And obviously Henry VIII abandoned the Catholic Church and created the Church of England. Well, I don't know if he abandoned the Catholic Church. You don't talk about. He basically became the head of the church for England. He kind of separated the two. What is he going to say about this?
England, but don't worry, this is a topic for another video.
Oh. How powerful was the Pope in medieval times? I'm going to answer it before he answers it. I'm giving my free, unbiased, well, it's a bias. Everything's biased. How powerful was the Pope in medieval times? Power is... Oh, we know what power. Power is just a fun word that a lot of people use. How influential is probably the better word I would use. How influential was the Pope in medieval times? I would say very influential. Got thousands of men to lay down their lives and under a promise that's fed with no real substance. It just depends how you look at it. I would say pretty influential, though.
Question cannot be answered exactly, but there wasn't a single pope or single period. The pope was not more powerful than sovereign kings in Europe. There have been very powerful popes through history, and their holiness had great influence to some kingdoms, especially against Muslims, heretics, non-believers, or excommunicated kings. Yes, a pope could excommunicate a member of the church if some rules were crossed. Throughout history, many popes basically answered to a king that sponsored their election and navigated through alliance to preserve their position. So the game of power was present back in these days. In conclusion, the average pope was maybe more powerful than smaller kingdoms. The strength of the papacy was the faith of the people and the close relationship between the crown and God. If someone attacked the pope, this could have led to more conflict with other kingdoms. The attacker would risk excommunication, among other things, that could potentially cause great damage. Also, it was more often an advantage to stay on the good side of the pope, due to his influence, so he can help you with claims on lands you desire, especially if the lands were held by non-believers or enemies of His Holiness. Being very powerful or not, it wasn't a good strategy to have the Pope as an enemy. Why? Well, you are in medieval Europe, and he is in the chair of St. Peter, and maybe more will join him. Kings supported popes, and popes supported kings. It was like a symbiosis. They worked together and had conflicts too, based on different reasons. We are looking to create more interesting history.
Awesome. I really don't know what the best frame is to stop. It's a good frame. Yeah, this video is good. The biggest nugget of information was the Avignon popes. 6 of them had residency at that place. Maybe not all at once or in succession, but at least that was interesting. Yeah, the papacy or the Pope as a whole has always been more of an influential role, in my opinion, versus like a powerful role. Power is just an adjective of whatever, but same thing is with influence. But I think influence really, there is a state of influence that it was shown by action of the Crusades, but then at the same time, it's the influence can really just be determined by the end user. Like, what is the influence for? Is it for the for a state to grab more land? Was the influence to do this, to go to war? So overall, good video. Learned a little bit more about the Pope, as we just got a new Pope, Pope Leo, which is I think the first American Pope, right? Something like that. I don't know too much about it. But we yeah, another Knowledgia video. Knowledgia videos are very much, you know, scratch the surface. That's why we don't react to a ton of them, but they do have you know, good information that maybe we haven't heard or thought of before. So cool stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. You have a great, beautiful day. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye bye.